Hello. Let's do something short. So, so finishing the 3 Doctor Who reviews and sitting on whether to do the 4th one, but having this absolute gut feeling that it's a Christmas episode and those are already usually quite thin, and it really feels like not special 4 of the specials, but episode 0 of the season we're about to get but haven't yet got. It's really got me thinking how I hold special 4 to a completely different standard. And then it got me thinking about how I like Power Rangers, I like Thunderbirds, I like a lot of kid show stuff that I genuinely think is quite good. Like, Thunderbirds really knows tension. Avatar The Last Airbender proves cartoons are not just for kids. I mean, plenty of anime does, but, But Power Rangers to me became like quite the comparison to Doctor Who. They're both shows in which they have a multi-year legacy of rotating cast. They both fight aliens, albeit the Power Rangers fight them with weapons and the Doctor fights them without weapons. But they're both long-running series that, like, as geek culture, we take quite seriously, but also understand that they are campy shows for kids. So it really got me thinking on why I go so hard at Doctor Who, whereas something like Power Rangers, it can be as campy as it wants, and I'll still have, like, criticisms. Megaforce is one of the worst seasons. Probably not the worst, given Operation Overdrive, but like at the end of the day, I give Power Rangers a lot more leeway than I do Doctor Who, and I think it's because Power Rangers being a colourful spandex show with rubber Japanese aliens, it just lends itself to, like, the aesthetic itself is inherently more silly. So you look at Power Rangers from a distance and go, yeah, it's absurd, but oh well, it's Power Rangers. And so when it comes to, it's just for kids, Power Rangers kind of gets away with that a bit more. Whereas Doctor Who are genuinely, like, the monsters are still that same kind of campiness, but with the new budget, like, my brain almost forgets that. So and even in the way Doctor Who tells stories, the fact that it's about one person with multiple incarnations, and that they fight aliens with their wit and their voice and their smarts, and then even when they die, they endure, there's some philosophy in that. Whereas Power Rangers is known for, and then they learned the power of friendship. Like, Doctor Who has that, but its best episodes don't fall on that. Doctor Who is the kind of show where it is generally hit and miss, but at its best, it never has to rely on, well, it's for kids, well, it's just silly and campy, well, don't take it too seriously. Like, but there's really something to that. There are so many other kid shows, like Hey Arnold is a good example. It's very clearly got themes that are directed towards kids, but they're very mature themes for a kid show. And I think to some extent, when Power Rangers does a generally episodic, one of them learns that being competitive is bad and teamwork is always better, that's the kind of thing that I just go, yep, it's thin, shallow, and obvious, but it's still solid. It's still a solid story structure. Whereas something about these 3 specials just really got to me on a level of they just bypassed the basic payoff stuff. Whereas episode 4, when I think about taking that same deep dive structure to it, I just end up feeling like, but it's a Christmas episode. Like, I shrug it off just on the very low standards nature of it. So there is something to how I give Power Rangers a big pass for being campy. And so when it comes to Doctor Who, I'm not against silliness and whimsy and whatnot. Doctor Who thrives on it. But Doctor Who wants to do those philosophical, traumatic bits and then doesn't fully commit. And even doing this to figure out what I'm trying to figure out here, it feels like in either direction I'm either going to inadvertently say that, well, see, this is why Power Rangers is better, or this is why Doctor Who is better. It's not really that. It's understanding that I hold Doctor Who on a completely different pedestal than I do Power Rangers. When at the end of the day, they are just a show that thrives on these crossovers and the individual episodic episodes where they go darker than you expected them to. And so I really think now, going forward, I will take the approach of deep dive. If I hit an episode that I think would actually benefit from a closer look at it, but it takes so much energy to create an hour-long video to bring energy to something that didn't bring it in return, that it's actually kind of better to take that same approach I have to Power Rangers, which is, was it worth watching? Which also, there's probably some benefit in when I watch Power Rangers, I'm watching the season as a whole. I'm not watching one episode at a time where I have to sit on a thin filler episode for a week and decide whether there's anything more to it than, yay, I watched it, anyway, do other things now. Because it feels kind of sad to do that to Doctor Who. To watch it once, go, yeah, it was good, and then move on, and that be it. That doesn't, when the show really wants to get back to its heyday, when it wants to be a big budget show, when it wants to be the new big Disney thing, like, I remember when Power Rangers was bought by Disney. Like, Power Rangers actually went through this. They were bought by Disney for a while. They brought back their most popular Ranger in the same way they've brought back David Tennant. And in that same vein, they have these crossovers where the same Rangers keep coming back to the point where both fandoms have this nature of thinking that the most popular one is also the most overrated one, just because they're so commonly chosen and there's such a vast range of characters to choose from, even if the Doctors are all the Doctor. So it's just got me thinking about how I treat Power Rangers versus how I treat Doctor Who. So I don't know if it's that I should drop standard when it comes to Doctor Who and just enjoy it for what it is, or if this is actually a notion that, because the best seasons of Power Rangers probably do hold up to a deep dive like that. Like, Power Rangers in Space has some really good stories to it. But I think for now, going with the 4th special, asking, was it worth watching, is a good baseline. And if I'm like, yeah, it was worth watching to the point where I want to dig deeper into it, then I should do a deep dive. Starting with the deep dive for every episode is going to burn out so fast. So yeah, let's go with that. Episode 1, The Star Beast. Yeah, worth watching, because the Star Beast itself is so lively, and David Tennant just brings it, and that alone makes it enjoyable. Episode 2, same deal again. It really is David Tennant, because having him also play a villain, just, that's a solid move. And then thinking about that, again, David Tennant and his absolute off-the-wall energy combined with Neil Patrick Harris's performance. When I think about it, all 3 episodes, at their very least, have a solid protagonist energy and a solid antagonist energy. And all the shenanigans that happen around it are just David Tennant being let loose. And Catherine Tate having a good interaction with him while he does so. Like, at the end of the day, their banter and their dialogue always makes it worth it. So then, looking at Special 4, and you'd think, well, but David Tennant's not in that. Good, because we don't want let's give different Doctors some shine. But also, by the way, that's why, when it comes to Doctor Who, as much as I get why they don't want to overuse the crossover thing, like Power Rangers and Doctor Who having this legacy of, like, this many Rangers, this many Doctors, the crossover is something that they can do that not many other shows can do. So it's funny that they want to be the MCU, but they don't want to do crossovers. That's an odd choice. So then Special 4, was it worth watching? Yeah, absolutely. Firstly, Doctor Who, just by its own nature of existing, is a good opportunity to watch with other people. And on top of that, Gatwa's performance is really good as well. Gatwa jumping between the excitement of learning rope and the tearfulness nature of remembering that he's an orphan as well. If I do a deep dive, I'm gonna just go into complaints, because the fact that they spent 3 episodes building up to Tennant retiring, and then Gatwa instantly mentions the being an orphan. Like, again, he didn't necessarily have to get over the whole thing, but it's like he never did. You could literally just skip from the end of Whittaker to Gatwa, and that plotline would still make complete sense. So, as a Christmas special introducing Gatwa and Millie, great. I think it's blatantly obvious, Red Dwarf style, that Ruby is probably her own grandmother or something. But yeah, like, we'll see. This is why I treat it as episode 0 of the next season, it kind of feels like here's an incomplete introductory episode, and you can't quite really, on its own, it is an introductory episode that feels like a Christmas filler, and that is both good and bad. Like, it's solid, but it's not really anything to go on until we see the rest of it. I do get the sense that the Christmas episode will be vastly improved or vastly devolved by what comes after. So yeah, despite all my complaints, all 4 specials were definitely worth watching, but maybe not worth. As soon as you dig, they fall apart. They're definitely held up by energetic performance. So yeah, thanks for watching. Bye bye.